There you go. Good afternoon. My name is Eduardo Kastner. I've been doing this for about 12 years, not only in Microsoft, but before that, I was a CIO, then I worked for Dell, and then I worked for Microsoft, 8 years here. And been doing this a ton. My pleasure is to talk to about between 4 and 9 large IT environments per week and get to hear what they do, and then I go back and I slap the product groups back into reality. So it's a pretty cool job. So if you hear that I'm very adamant, or if you feel that I have a strong emotion about something, please understand it's because I've heard more than 5 of you in the past say that this worked or it didn't. So it's not because, for almost 10 years, 9 years and something, I ran 36 outsourcings. So yes, I run very large operations. But for my last 8 years, I've been listening to you guys. So if I have a strong emotion, it's because I can tell you 5 references of people who it worked or it didn't. It doesn't mean that I'm saying that you're not going to make it work, okay? It just means that I've seen enough cases so that I have an opinion. Is that fair? Yes? The only motion you're going to have to do in this whole session is like this or like this. And if you go vertical and you stay down, I'm cool with that. I'll let you go at it, as long as you don't snore. Is that okay? But you got to move, because if you don't move at 5 p.m., that's it, we're dead. I will keep you here all night. And then tomorrow you'll stink, and the next speaker, it's not okay. Cool? Yes. See? Okay, let's start. The first question I got to ask you, I don't believe in index slides, I'm sorry. The first question I got to ask you is, what is your strategy? Because you know the problem that I have found in this space is that we don't necessarily have one. We're being pushed by our users to have a strategy. But if we could stay on one technology or on one type of deployment or on one type of process, I don't want to be mean, but we would. So please don't understand that I'm trying to be mean to you. I'm just trying to tell you that today, we're viewed as the status quo because we maintain the status quo. Is that fair? Now, we were the ones who were not innovative. Is that okay? Can you take some criticism and that be fine? God forbid the speaker push you a little bit. Understand, if you guys kept the status quo and then somebody came and told you, hey, you weren't innovative, what is your answer? And then he came and he said, out of my pocket, I'm going to go buy a $500 device, right? And bring it and connect it. What are you going to say? The guy voted with his wallet, and that's the biggest vote that somebody can do. You see where I'm going? He went and out of his pocket, he bought something. And you're thinking I'm talking about an iPad. You're incorrect. I'm talking about his phone. In fact, you want to see how old I am? I'm talking about the Palm 5X. That you denied it existed. Some of you are not even old enough to know about that. I'm so sad about myself. Man, fat, ugly, bold, and now, thinking about year 2000. I'm trying to tell you this has been going on for 10 years and nobody wants to recognize it. Is that fair? Seriously, think about it. What, you tell me you recognize the Palm 5X back when it was connected and reading emails? And it was syncing, and you're like, oh no, we're not allowing that. And everybody had one, even you. And no, we're not allowing it, but you're reading emails. And then 10 years later, okay, the first phone comes out, and I'm talking about 2010. And no, I'm not going to go down memory lane forever. I'm going to do this for 5 seconds. But 10 years later, somebody comes in and just syncs over wireless, everything, and they want to take everything out. And you're like, oh no, you can't do that. But you're not stopping him, and you're not giving him a way to do his business, to do his job. Let me put it to you this way. If I'm a lawyer, and the simplest way for me to sign a contract is to send it via IM, and you block IM, I'm going to find an IM that works with my vendors. You don't like that analogy? I'm in procurement. And if the simplest way to get a quote, right? You see my point? I'm going to find a way to do my job. So the more you think that this is about users, you're wrong. This is about me trying to do a task to do my job, earn my salary, and go up in the food chain and feed my children just like you, man. And the more you disallow me to do that, the more I'm going to find creative ways and vote with my wallet to do them. So with that topic, I ask you again, in a pretty nasty way, what is your strategy? Now you see my point? Do you have a strategy? Don't raise your hands. I don't want to see this. Because some of you do, but some of you just say yes. And when I go back to your users and I ask them, what is IT strategy to support you? They can't answer it. And you know what? That means you don't have a strategy. Is that fair? Because the strategy is not something you should recite back to me. It's something they should recite back to you. It's something that you agreed with them that you would support, and they agreed. And by the end of this presentation, we're going to go exactly into examples of people who did that. Is that cool? Are you happy with that? Is that a good session? No demos here, only experience, only a ton of what has happened out there. If you're expecting demos or you're expecting strong product views or technical features, you're not going to get them here. Please don't be disappointed. I beg of you, understand there are decent strategy sessions in this conference. I hope I give you one. Is that fair? Let's move on. So, what happens today is quite simple. Number one, we asked 100 companies, right? We asked the IT department, how many users out of your whole environment access high business impact data? You know what that means? That means compliancy-based data. The most contemptuous, incorrect data that you can have. How many? And they said 34%. And then we turn around and we ask the users. Oops. So my question to you is, guess who's happy? Sorry, guess who's right? Stay on your feet, I'll keep you on your feet. Is that fair? Guess who's right? And I love this. Then we went and saw a study that Gartner did. Same type of study, 88% of people access high business impact data on their personal devices. Again, if you're thinking tablets, I'll tell you the first citizen is a mobile. First citizen is a phone, second citizen is a tablet, okay? Or in many, if not in most cases, third citizen is a tablet. Second citizen is a mobile laptop, whichever type you want. And what's interesting is this 3.3 devices, because I've never yet met the 0.3 device, but it's super cool. If you ask me how many devices I carry about 4 devices. So it's right there, okay? Can I read email on my 4 devices? I'll tell you something that I hope you break out in laughter and then you cry about the reality of this, okay? I wake up and the first thing I do is I see some email and then I turn around and I say, good morning, honey. Tell me you don't do that because I'll think you're lying. No, it's like some of you are like, no. You know what? The sad thing is she wakes up and now she does the same thing. She wakes up and she sends me an email, good morning, honey. That way I'll say it before no, so my point is crazy. We're doing this as a task. Now understand, if I had my trusty Surface next to me, would I grab the Surface instead of the phone? Yeah, why not? Don't get me wrong, I get the no's, but I'm saying why not? If you have a tablet in front of you or you have the PC turned on right here, wouldn't you just read the email there? Understand, I think that we're now focused on tasks. We're not necessarily now focused on screens anymore. So if I want to do a task and any which device which is next to me can fulfill it, I'll just use whatever is more convenient. Is that fair? But if it's not convenient, like watching a TV show on my phone, I mean, many people do it when you have to, when you're on the train. But it's not my preferred place. And I didn't say watch a Excel spreadsheet with a ton of numbers. That's impossible. That you need to go somewhere to do that activity still. Somewhere where you have a big screen or dual screens. Is this cool? Is this something you agree with me so far? If you need to build some content or you're going to have a conf call and you know it's going to be a boring one because I'm presenting it, and you want to have a dual screen where you have a big web browser and you do your own thing on the other side and not pay attention, you're going to go somewhere to do this. You see, I'm making fun of all this because this is things we do. I'm not trying to tell you things that you're avoiding. This is things we all do. So understand, work is an activity. It's no longer a screen. It's not a desk. It's not a place. It's not even a screen. I'll say this twice. Let me say it 3 times. It's not a device. It's an activity. I need to do email. I need to put in a PO, a purchase order. I need to sign a document. I need to send a communication. I need to publish something on the internet. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about activities. Think about what I need to do each one of those activities, and then think of the device that's better suited to do each one of those. Think of the connection. Think of the security. Now you see where I'm going? Think of the environment that I require to achieve this activity. Now, I'll tell you something. I'm tired of this. I didn't even update them for this conference. I'm so sorry. But you know what? Every time I turn around, there's more cell phones now than human beings. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not. Go to this website down here, the International, I don't know if you can read this, I'll read it for you. International Telecommunications Union. By the way, the deck is published. Not on this beautiful black colors, but on crazy TechEd colors. So God bless you on that one. But the point is, click on that link, go there. There's about 7 billion, 7.2 billion. There's 7 billion people in the world. Right? There's more cell phones than people. I think the next time we turn around, there's going to be cell phones owning people. So what I'm trying to tell you is, understand, smart devices, there's about 1.2 billion. This is massive. This means that people already have self-served. Your BYOD, whatever, it's over. It happened 5 years ago. You just don't want to recognize it on the primary device, which in your point of view is the, stay with me, desktop, laptop, right? No, the primary device is not that. The primary device is the cell phone now. It just completely shifted on you. Is that fair? You agree? You don't agree? You're awake? Some of you are going like, it's slowing down. So stay with me. This is not consumerization. Consumerization is his ability to go buy whatever he wants right now. Okay? Consumerization of IT is his ability as IT to support him. I'll say this again. I want to land this point really well. There's two very different things here. One is his ability as a consumer to go buy whatever he wants. Fair? The other one is IT's responsibility and capability to manage those devices, those experiences, or those services. They're completely two different motions. The market is talking about them as if they were one. I humbly disagree. Is that okay with you? Do you see the difference? Now, with that said, let's see what happened today. And if you disagree on any slide, raise your hand, man. I'd love a good discussion, okay? Even in the middle of a session. I say this is what happened. We had a good device with local everything, right? One configuration. And then what happened is somebody came in and said, reduce the TCO. In other words, they cut your budget, right? And then what you did is you said, okay, we're no updates, right? The first effect of no budget is no updates. So the second thing that happened is some executives started bringing in iPads, right? Or phones, right? And you said, okay, cool. How do I manage those things? Why don't I go get a good MDM solution, right? Mobile device management solution. So you went out there and you bought some good whatever. So far, so good? And then somebody came back and said, no, you know what? This stuff is pretty old. It stinks now. It actually, it's a nasty experience. So you said, okay, I'll fix it. I'll update some of it. So you updated some of it. But then what happened is you said, no, wait, we got to do BYOD. So people started bringing their own stuff. Right? So you said, how do I fix that? Let's use some VDI, right? That's the solution. We will concentrate all the same environment. Can I say half a bad word? No, nobody's answering. Wow. First 15 minutes, everybody's asleep. So the same environment that was not okay, I was going to say crappy, but you guys didn't respond. The same crappy environment that I'm managing, right, that people didn't necessarily want, I'm not going to give it to you on your device that's brand new and shiny. I'm going to centralize it and give it to you as a remote experience, so you're scrolling with your finger now and trying to click on it and make it even more cryptic. No? You've never tried this? Come on, tell me you didn't do it. Believe half of you. So thank you. And you know what? That experience is nasty. Have you ever tried it? I'd love to see you on an Alaskan Airlines, just because they have some of the best Wi-Fi, trying to see this guy on a tablet. It doesn't matter the brand, trust me. If it's Android, if it's Apple, if it's whatever, trying to scroll through this VDI image and trying to do something, and after 10 minutes, he's just banging his head with the tablet, going like, I hate somebody. And that somebody's usually us. So with that said, we ended up with this. I don't know if you realize. I clicked fast because the point is we ended up with 4x the complexity. 4x the cost, 4x the administration. Jeff Johnson, which is a guy I talk to on this topic very, very often, he's an amazing guy. He just built a graph, and he gave me this yesterday, so that's why it's not in the deck. I apologize. But it was like, this is what desktop management is, and this is what VDI or BYOD or whatever management. So you take all this off, and you just leave this, right? And you're like, what do you want to do? You want to do this? You want to do this? And the problem is not that it's more complex. It's in the scenarios that it makes sense, do everything. I fully agree. But in some scenarios, what we're doing is we're doing for X. Now, please raise your hand whoever disagrees. Because I know that you may think it's not 4x, it's 16x or 2x. It doesn't matter. It's more than 1x. Is that okay? So with that said, what did we just do? Well, we enabled ourselves to be more complicated. And if it was hard before, we just made it harder. You see, the strategy worked, right? We just made our life a living hell. So, what's the idea? Well, I love some of this Western mentality that TCO can go down forever. Think of the airlines that treat you really bad. I'm not going to say names. We all have a preferred one. Right? Think of it. I'm going to charge you cheaper, and I'm going to treat you nastier. Up until the point where you don't want to fly with me anymore. Right? That's what IT did. Tell me you disagree. That's one of those gloom moments. It's like, oh my God, he was talking about me. Yes, I was. That's exactly what we did. We treated people to a cheaper experience to the point where they said, I'm going to go buy my own whatever. And the strategy worked. Because if you notice, half of the market is now buying their own stuff. So what's dramatically interesting is what we also achieved is to lower agility, because we never focused on it. We never focused on the guy opening the PO purchase order faster. We never focused on the guy being productive or selling the stock better. You see my point? We never focused on the guy being able to do what he really wanted to do better. So what's the idea? The big idea is we start with this 4x, and we end up with a different concept, God forbid. Here's what I'm going to propose to you, okay? And I'm going to start talking about best practices that I've seen in different companies of how they're doing it differently. So the first thing that they do is they say, we're going to cap, we're going to limit TCO. We're going to say the minimum cost for the desktop experience that we require as a company to be functional. Think of the tires on the truck, okay? The minimum level of tires that we need for the truck to run is this. This is the cost. And whichever efficiencies we achieve, we will reinvest to provide you with a better service. That's not such a bad concept. And you know what? I don't know any board of trustees that you come to them and you tell them, this is the minimum cost of what we need, and you justify correctly, and they'll say, I disagree. And you say, next year when you push us down, what you'll achieve is you'll achieve all this negative TCO, which actually drives a bad experience, which costs more. Because now your people are not only being less productive, they're spending more time. And I don't have this, again, because it was sent to me yesterday and we're doing the analysis still. But if you look at the last 6 analysis of TCO that Gartner did, if you look at them, okay, you will see that direct costs shift up and down because of inflation, because of time, because of whatever. But indirect costs, which means break, fix, training, and support, go up. Why? It's not that hard, I just said it. Disparity of devices. We have 17x more devices. So now our break fix, our indirect costs are going up the roof. So what we're causing with this is we're making it more complex, but we're also making it more costly. Nothing that I said here has caused anybody so far to explode on their seat. So I'm pretty happy, because I don't think anybody is disagreeing massively. So with that said, what is the solution? Look at this. I want you to read this list to your heart's content. This means you're going to start building services. I don't care about the device. Listen to me again. I do not care about the device. I'm going to care about the service. Because I can give you the service with ups and downs on a mobile phone, on a tablet, on a desktop, on a dual screen. You see what I'm saying? Because people want to do the task. So I'm going to enable you through a service. Think of email. Now think of your line of business applications. Some of them you're going to be able to do on multi-screens, and some of them you're not. Is this useful so far? Not really. Okay, let's keep going. Now, what am I saying is, if you focus on services, you're thinking of 1x. You're not thinking of 4x anymore, because you're not looking at how you're going to support exclusively each service on each device. You just publish the service. Let me go into it a little bit more. The idea is to stop thinking desktop, laptop, tablet, slate, etc., and start thinking mobile service. Because it's all mobile services now. There's very few of you, and for very few types of profiles, that are deploying desktops, right? Most people, even for desktops, are, well, manufacturing, they're still deploying desktops, and hospitals. But I'm saying a lot of people are mostly deploying laptops, even on desktop scenarios, even if they fix them, even if they put them there. So what I'm saying is it's a semi-mobile kind of weird environment. Now, let's think about this fast. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of paradigms. I don't know if there are 10 or 11 of them, but I'm going to go very, very fast. And I hope you realize that if I'm highlighting any technology from Microsoft or anybody else, I'm just trying to tell you this is how I think you could solve it. But you know what? Play the game with me. And if you don't like the technology that I'm proposing to you and you like another one, then insert it here, okay? Just play the game of insert it here. Understand, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of options. But my point is to show you the paradigms and how to break them and how to do the strategy. So let's start with the first one. We're going from desktop, or thinking from a laptop, whatever you call it, to multiple screens. So the idea here is quite simple. We did something interesting. I don't think that we were massively or not successful. I'm not here to make any claims. I'm not saying that this thing worked or it didn't. We're still on this adventure together. But I'll tell you something. Our thought process is something that I really think most people should at least start being inspired by. And the idea is this. What would happen if, God forbid, you have the same type of user interface across devices? And why did I say God forbid? Because look, if you're thinking different type of technology, I'm fine with that. But what I'm trying to tell you is, what would happen if you make your app so that it can actually be displayed on 2 or 3 types of devices, and you separate the front end to the back end, so that you can actually have some mobility on the device. And you know what? If I'm a purchasing manager, and I want to access my SAP whatever purchasing system, just give you an example, right? Maybe on my mobile device, I don't want to create a PO, I just want to see status. So it's not as complicated as we want to make it, right? Display the whole thing. But it's more like just accessing and saying, I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember screen scraping from mainframe. Well, that's the idea. It's just screen scraping, right? It's just I grab a couple of pieces of data and I put them in a different format and I publish them. Because that's all the user wants to do. You see my point? So sometimes it's just approaching the user and saying, what do you want to do on this device? Why are you trying to do that? Well, because I want to see status. Okay, there you go. So we give you that. Some of these systems, which do not become a massive satellite of peripherals to the application, but you can become, if you understand this right, a middleware to a front end. Now, this is a different type of strategy because most of the time when we talk about devices, desktops, and everything, we talk about configuration management, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking to you about making the application useful because you're going to have multiple OSs. I mean, you will have to service at some point some Android, right? And if it wasn't that, it was some BlackBerry. And if it wasn't that, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe the best protocol for you is HTML whatever, HTML5 or pure HTML or whichever. I was talking to a government organization, and they said to me, for taxation purposes, what we need to do is we need to display an iPhone app. And I said, iPhone? Why iPhone? And he said, well, because that way people can download it. And I said, what happens to people who have BlackBerries? Understand, your government, you don't know. This is citizens. Anybody can approach and anybody can download it. And why are you only going to service a piece of yours? So I'm not saying Windows Phone either. I'm just saying, why are you limiting? And he said, you're absolutely right. So you see, the interesting thing here is who are you servicing and how you're going to service them. The next question is simple. When you think about this, I'm actually trying to say that your app should have a front end, the ones that you display in multiple devices, that cover multiple devices. That's the whole idea. Let me move away. Let me go to the next one, which is interesting. I want to put here an example because the example explains more than I could in 10 slides. And the example is simple. Am I going too fast? I get excited, I talk faster. Is this good? Okay. The example is this company, Flavors, who sells tickets. You know, it's like a smaller Ticketmaster for those of you in the US. They sell tickets to concerts, to events, etc. What I like about this case study is it really talks about front end and back end. It talks about scaling on the front end with a very flexible client, and it talks about a brick and mortar database, so a real database and a real data center, but that it has the ability to scale up to the cloud on the back end when it requires more power. So what's interesting about this case study is when I talk to you about data center to the cloud, is that I'm trying to say you can have the front end and the back end scale. So most cases only think of back end scaling, right? I'm trying to talk to you about both. And that's an interesting story to think about cloud, just as an example. There's a lot of people who are building their front end with mobile services, example with Azure, and then their back end services scale up or don't scale up through. I think that's an interesting architecture not to do. Yes, go ahead. Yes. So you're talking about the shopping task and the transaction task about front-end scalability, yes.
So would the strategy be to go ahead and perhaps scale just the shopping task?
Well, it depends on which one is more process intensive, right? If your shopping task, so the question is which one to scale more. It really depends on your application, let's be honest, because if your shopping task is the intensive one, then that's the one you want to do. If the transactional task is super simple, it can be done in your private data center. Actually, I'll give you another great example. There's a lot of websites which what they're doing right now is they're putting on a front scalable end, the front end, but when it comes to you doing the purchase on the credit card, that goes to a back-end secure compliant server in a real brick and mortar data center. So it also depends on your compliancy. So understand, it's not only a subject of scalability, it's also a subject of what you feel comfortable with. Okay? So let me keep going. That was all I wanted. Like I said, I'm going to go through the different paradigms. Okay? Let me keep going. The next one is actually a lot of fun. Office to the world. I don't put out of office in my computer anymore because you know what? I don't remember the last time I was in the office. I'm not kidding you. What's the difference to you if I'm going to reply an email in the same 3 hours times? So what do you care if I'm in the office or I'm in the hospital because, you know, whatever happened, right? Or I'm in kindergarten picking up my child, and I'll still reply to your email, I'll still attend to your conf call, and I'll still participate. Is that okay? So my point is, you need to understand that the office criteria applies to certain roles, but that's about it. Corporate roles have completely massified on their lack of location. And therefore, you have to start thinking, and I've said this in 2-3 conferences, and I apologize if you've seen this slide again, but this is a who, where, what, or a who, what, where. I don't care in which order you put them. But when I say who, I mean your profile and your compliance, and I mean no more than 4 profiles. Let me list them so that you understand exactly where I'm going. People misunderstood this strategy when we talked about it first thing about 5 years ago, and they said, oh, I'm going to build 15 profiles. I'm going to be 200 because that's the roles I have in the company. Wrong. We're talking about a corporate role, a compliance role, okay? So the corporate one is all of us. The compliance is the guy who signed, like the CFO, like the CEO, like a stockbroker, like a doctor, like somebody taking orders with a credit card. Somebody who signed a role with a contract with our HR department and said, I am dealing with customer-sensitive data. Okay? That's the next one would be external if you want, or vendor. Okay? And the last one could be a custom one, like manufacturing or a medical room. You understand where I'm going? That's it. Maximum 4. Because if not, you're going to multiply your combinations and you're going to do permutations, which is combinations of combinations. And we couldn't manage 1 or 2 profiles correctly, and now we want to manage 200. You see my point? So you have to keep this down to the minimum number to be successful. And everybody that has been successful, okay, has achieved it by doing less than 4. So 4 is already the maximum. You already pushed it. If you can do it on 3, you're doing good. Almost nobody does it on 1 or 2. It's almost everybody's in 3 right now. The people who have done this and they say, I'm pretty satisfied. The other important thing is I need to know your device and your location. Why? Because there's some things that won't display right. There's some things that with rights management I cannot protect. Is that fair? Any type of right management, okay? And the last one is I will not let you, if you are in Aruba, with an Android, go into my banking system and do a transfer, a wire transfer. I will not allow you, I'm sorry. You're like, why? Because it sounds like you're having too much fun, okay? Suffer, you horrible human being. I don't care why, because it sounds wrong. Now you think I'm wrong. I'm not going to tell you the name of the bank because I'm in TechEd, everything is getting recorded, and you guys blog everything. That's not my fault. You people don't know how to keep your blogs to yourselves. Here, you know this huge bank got really fined, $1.5 billion fined in Europe because the European Committee found out that after you do 2 hops of wire transfers, okay, the money is clean. Oh my God, exactly, oh my God. So that's the application, but why am I touching it here? Because if I understand what you're going to do and where you're at, I will just disallow that. So most people would think that is an application problem, right? Wrong, it's an access problem. It's this person should have never been able to do the second hop without authentication. Now you see where I'm going? But that goes in the application. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But then again, this is a bank. They're getting paid to have those systems and that security built in, right? Or else where do you get the billions and billions of dollars? Or euros, or whatever you want to call them. So my point again is, understand, it is a higher problem than you fixing it with a deployment method. I'm going to say thin client just to make fun of it. Okay? So, you can do this with direct access, you can do this with IPv6, and direct access now is on IPv4, so don't mix those two, that's another one. Okay, so direct access would be one, IPv6 could be another, a universal access gateway from whichever vendor, or us or whomever else, RAS, there's a ton of ways, but if you understand what I'm saying correctly, I just stop here, and let me actually stop, and tell you my first advice to you is build an access strategy. That's the way you start on the right path. So step 1, do an access strategy. Okay? That also means that step 2 is understand your data. This is a massive project. It is painful as hell. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody associates it with desktop device, etc. management, right? This is a problem that everybody disassociates to it. But understand, the problem that you have is that, where's my cell phone? I keep trying to show it. The problem that I have is that I'm taking here the database of your company or incorrect information. You see, that's the problem. So isn't this a data problem? And you know that there's many ways to do this. Let me start by showing you a couple. The first one is, think of it like this. 80%, if not 90% of your data is me accepting your lunch invitation and then me sending you an email back saying where we're going to go to lunch. So 80 to 90% of data, it's not compliant based, it's not critical, and nothing happens if anybody else reads it. Even if it contains something on the company, because they will not even understand the jargon. Okay? Now, there's about 8% or less, no, actually, let's be fair. 80% is none, about 10% is low, which is marketing and things that are already public. And the last 10% is divided 8% in things that are sensitive and 2% of data that is actually compliant. And if you want to understand, I actually did my homework, okay? And I didn't read all of them because there's more than these, but I read, let me stay with me, SOX, PCI, GLBA, FISMA, HIPAA, Joint Commission, and Basel 1, 2, and 3. Then I saw some of the differences that we have with ARPA, with CSOX, and with JSOX. And you know what? That's enough to drive you crazy. But anybody here from a multinational? Well, you know what? You guys get hit by at least 7 of these. And the one that's the worst that you guys don't realize, if any of your companies report on more than one country, okay, I'll tell you what happens. When that happens, is you have to now start supporting. And if you haven't been hit, you will be hit by this in the future. Trust me. It's by the International Accounting Standards Board. Because I'll tell you the problem. In some countries, you report revenue and margin before taxes, and in others after taxes. So in order for this company to report their stock or their price or their accounting correctly on the mothership, they have to standardize the reports first. And it's a nightmare. That's what I talk about when I'm trying to talk to you about compliance data. But it's only 2%. So what's the big opportunity here? What's the big problem? Is you need to understand which systems touch this data. And then you need to secure the data of those systems. And if you say anything the CFO sends on his email is FISMA or whatever, HIPAA, whatever, right, compliant, then you apply something like rights management. And you enforce that group which is doctors, that group which is accountants, that every email that they send has to be right managed. And then when they come back to you and they say, I want to use the latest Android or Apple device, whatever, and you say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do it because what? You signed a contract that said that you're going to do a job. And that job I have to guarantee and I have to assure, and I'm going to give you devices that are just as sexy. And that's your strategy, that you have to be just as sexy. But you have to serve them correctly because they have a job. And you know what? We've seen enough examples of companies that get smacked and smacked badly by legal entities, by governmental entities, and etc., just because they didn't preempt this situation. Is this all fair? Or did I just bring a gloom and doom situation to us? Okay? So with that said, we do have a couple applications. I'm not going to go into what's the cost of data breach. I mean, it's terrible. I'll tell you something. We have a couple applications. Some of them are as simple as this one, which is for the Windows Phone. It's actually interesting. We even have a printout of this. It's pretty cool. You say, like here, right, your Windows Live ID, Passport ID, or IP address, or gender, or fax number. You put the type of data, and it tells you which compliancy it meets and which one require or not. That's a pretty nifty tool. This one is an interesting tool that you can download for your servers, and it scrubs the Windows servers, and it tells you which data is compliant or not. Nothing is going to be enough. Understand, there's no tool that we can develop and no tool that nobody else can develop. It's really you having to hunt down the systems that are compliant. That's the best way to do it. And then on those systems, it's hunt down where is that data stored. Okay? And you're always going to leave something out. You have to start on this path or you'll never get there. Is that fair? Okay. Now, we're halfway through. Let's talk about security. You know, I love this because every time I talk to a chief security officer, you know what they say? We're going to secure everything. And that's exactly the strategy that led us to not letting anybody do anything and everybody keeping this 7-pound laptops and everybody hating us. You see where I'm going? We're going to secure everything. Everything and nothing doesn't work. The pendulum never stays at one end. So here I'm talking about multiple tools. I'll talk about the Microsoft ones, but like I said, whatever you want to think, I'm fine with. Just understand that you need a multiple approach strategy, or else this doesn't work. You need to understand that yes, putting in perimeter security is important, but nowadays you're going to have multiple perimeters. Is that fair? You're going to have a perimeter within your data center and a perimeter within your applications, because you're going to have circles of trust. And those circles of trust have to be divided by who's enabled from these profiles to access that type of application or not, that type of data or not, etc., etc. That's why we've had a lot of success, and I'm being very humble but very serious with SharePoint, and how, you know what, because of your group, you can't access this type of data, or you can access that, and you have to request permission, etc., etc. So that really helps. The other thing is, of course, you can enter into the world of antiviruses, anti-malware, anti-everything, and I'm going to show you some slides which are horrible. I think I removed them, but look, everybody has malware and everybody has viruses, okay? I'm going to say this publicly. I'll get blogged on this and I'll get smacked, I realize, but that's okay. Apple has as many viruses of more than anybody else. Okay, same thing with Android. Same thing with Firefox. Same thing with Chrome. They're platforms. What do you expect? I mean, seriously, what do you expect? And if a door is open, do you think the hackers are going to say, well, we're just going to open this one because we don't like it? No, they're going to open whichever. So they're going after any platform. And every time you open a browser, right, and either that or a different type of OS, they will attack it. Okay, so understand, everything has a security threat. So you limiting to the most that you can some types of profiles, it helps. It helps. You're never going to be able to control them anymore. That world is over. The next one is simple. There's always things like App Locker, and I'm surprised how many people don't know about this one. Everybody here knows about App Locker? Okay, thank you. Now, I know this is a Microsoft conference, so of course here's going to be more, but evangelize on this, because whitelisting is better than blacklisting. And why am I saying that? It's so much easier for me to tell you what you can do versus do the huge list of things that you can't. It's so much easier to tell you, you know what, you can do this 30 things. But no, you cannot download views, and no, you cannot download malware and pirateware and freeware on your work PC. And if you want to infringe the law, go do it somewhere else. Now, there's another topic I want to touch on here. IT usually attributes themselves, capacities and attributions that are for HR. Let me explain what I just said. We got to block this guy because he's going to do something incorrect. If he does something incorrect, report him and fire him. I mean, it's not your responsibility. I'm sorry. Yes, I said that, God forbid. But if the guy did something incorrect physically, what, IT would go after him? No, it's the guy did something incorrect, so just report him and that's it. Say, HR, you decide what to do with this dude, He did something that was unspeakable. Whatever you want to call that. But my point is, understand there's a limit. Because I love how we say, no, doctors shouldn't be able to do this and this. Doctors are saving lives. They have more years of training than any of us put together. And you go there and you put your lives in their hands. And then you go to a medical system and they're like, no, they're really dumb. You shouldn't be able to. What? What are you talking about? So my point is, let's treat adults as adults we are. Is that fair? And the other point here that I just want to make very clearly is you don't and you're never going to end up with one management solution. 14 is probably a wrong number, okay? But I hate the guys who count consoles. And they say, I'm going to have 3 consoles because I can't have more. Who told you when you're fixing a car that you need 2 wrenches? What happens if you need 4? God forbid. You need something to do the job, get it. Do it. Just don't go crazy. That's the secret. Okay? Don't do tool disparity. Now with that, let me show you a couple of interesting examples. One is a lot of people are using Intune to manage the mobile devices versus using Config Manager to manage the desktop laptops and servers. Very interesting strategy. Why? Because some of the mobile devices, like I say later, you want to have a lighter management experience or a lighter touch. And you may require or want no configuration agent on there. I know I'm oscillating between level 100 and level 300. I know I'm oscillating between tools and technology and nothing. But what I'm trying to tell you is a strategy for me is 10 times more worth it, because if you know where you're going, then whatever you're doing makes sense. Is that okay? So my point is, don't think that you have to manage everything the same way just because you have a tool. Because you may not require it and you may cause more grief by doing it. Because if you come to me, now let's talk about legal implications, and you tell me that the phone that I bought with my money, you're going to put an application there and then pretend because you put an application there that you own the device, legally we have a battle. Is that okay? So now you understand what I'm saying? If the phone is not yours, you can manage it lightly, and therefore you have to think of a light management strategy. And that may be another tool. That's where I went. Now let's keep going. So far so good? Is this useful to some degree? You have a question? Okay, good. No. So let's go to lockdown versus controlled. You see, there's many applications, and as time goes by, not only Microsoft, but a whole bunch of other people are going to give you applications in a ton of screens. This slide doesn't do me justice. I was just trying to display here how you can have them in all types of devices, and that there's applications like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Skype, as well as Office 365, that you're going to be able to go into almost any screen, right? You go into almost any screen and it just works. So this is something that you're going to see more and more and more from the ecosystem away from you, away from IT, central IT. Now, let's talk about your user. Your user grabs his device and he starts simply using it. And by simply using it, he gets service from this multiple services on multiple screens, and he starts asking you to behave the same way with your applications. Now you see where I'm getting? So he doesn't see the difference that you say, oh, LinkedIn or Facebook or whoever or Microsoft has billions of dollars to develop this on multi-screens. They're not going to see that. They're going to see, I need support on my multiple devices, and I need this application mobility. Now, you need to deliver this without a compromise of security. And that's where technologies like dynamic access control and right management can provide a ton of help. I'll tell you something. There was this example of a government public work. So they were building a dam, okay? And what they did, and this is another example that I participated in, it was very interesting. What they did is they required every single vendor to have Active Directory with federation services and rights management. And what they did is they created groups, and they said, when you build your piece of the dam, then I'll give you rights, and all the documents we share, all the emails we do, all the access to the SharePoints, everything is going to get right managed, right? And then when you finish your piece, I just cut it off. I just cut you from that group in Active Directory, and then everything that you kept, and everything that you saw, and everything that you had on emails and everything, you can't access anymore. Beautiful solution because you managed the documents correctly. Okay, so it's an interesting example of what you can do. I hope I'm bringing enough examples so that you see that none of this is fluff. It's all based on somebody. Now the next one is some banks are actually doing something quite interesting. There's this one bank that came up to me and they said, well, I'm interested in putting a little more of the, not the identity. Here I'll talk about Azure in a second, Azure and ID, but I'm thinking of thinning out my surface of virtual machines on the branch, okay? So I want to have less virtual machines on the branch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the configuration management deployment points and move the operations manager remote instances to Azure as IaaS. And what's interesting about that is that all of a sudden, they not only thinned them, but they went down from 6 servers to 1 server because they send more and more things to the cloud, right? And they understood that the only thing that has to be in the branch is whatever I need to be offline, right? So if something happens, and God forbid that branch goes completely offline, it doesn't have network, but it does have power so that it can continue running on their own system. But it doesn't necessarily have to, I mean, authentication would be a critical system there, but anything else, the management, deployment points, all those things, they can be offline. You see my point? So very interesting solutions. Other people are saying, actually, and this is more manufacturing, I saw 2 examples of people saying, I want to move my Active Directory for federation, because I have a ton of federation with other vendors, to Azure AD. And the solutions are being very creative. Very creative because now they also found out that they have to manage less surface on this type of deployments. Okay? And they can focus more on the identity management versus managing the technology only itself. So very, very interesting thoughts. The next one is quite simple. It's going to be a big one. Let's talk about corporate purchased versus any device. So far, this list is interesting to you? Is this something that you could bring to other people in your organization and drive some good thoughts? That's what this deck is built for. I'm not kidding. This deck is built for you to reuse it. Let's go into this aspect. So I don't know, bless you, I don't know if you've seen this in the past. Have any of you seen this in the past? We've presented this 2 or 3 times, okay? There's going to be a couple of spins, because we've learned from what we've presented. So please stay with me even if you've seen this. The first thing is when we presented this the first time, we said, look, there's 4 types of profiles, right, on consumerization, or bring your own. The first one is, here is your own. Here is your own is quite simple. Is I buy a laptop in Central IT, I give it to you, and you're like, well, this is not what I wanted. I didn't want a 7-pound brick, and I say, I don't care. This is what you get. This scenario is only good for 2% of your current users. Example, a manufacturing person on the line. Another example, a doctor on an examining room, right? Can I be gruesome for a second just to wake you up? Thank you. Some of you are like, yeah, bring on the horror story. So would you want the guy to have his iPad or his laptop in an environment that can have blood and all the other gore? Think about it. No. Because then he has to take it out and what? Wash the heck out of it first, right? So now you understand where I'm going? There's some environments which is natural for this is the device and you shut up. That's it. I'm sorry, I'm not asking for your opinion. This is it. There's some environments that require that. There's other environments which is 90% of everybody else, which is here is your own, which means I'm going to build a list of 10 devices which are sexy, nice, and meet multiple roles, and I'm going to tell you, which one do you want to buy, sir? You say, out of this 10, I want option B. There you go. That's it. Everybody's satisfied. This is where most companies are going today, okay? There's other 2 roles that you should not forget. There's bring your own, which I'll talk extensively in a minute, and then there's on your own. On your own is I don't care about you. You're the vendor that's going to come in here and paint the wall, and you need a color matching application. God bless you. You call my help desk, we're not even going to answer your call. You got that? The maximum thing I'm going to give you is Wi-Fi and good morning. Okay? That's all you get from me, not even coffee. So on your own is also an important environment because there's a lot of people who are saying, I'm going to have dual Wi-Fi networks on my environment, and I'm going to have an on your own environment, right? Where people can come in and can connect, and I give them a password, and I'm going to put a filter, a firewall, so that they don't do any incorrect things on the internet, but I'm not going to regulate, and there's no tech support for it, right? Because I want people to have access to their personal life, to their personal environments, on their personal devices. But there's no support for it, and there's legally no implication because you can even put a splash screen that says, accept that you're doing this on your own. God bless you. Legally, I'm not responsible. Okay, so there's ways to do this that you do it correctly. There's others, which is now, let's talk about BYOD. BYOD, or bring your own device, has to be divided into two. Not can be divided, it has to be divided. The first one is a managed environment, and the second one is an unmanaged environment. Now let's go into this. What did I just say? You thought that when I was speaking through this, I was talking about a hard-coded environment. In other words, you, sir, were just in choose your own, right? That was it. I was going to drop you in a box. No, it's not you. It's actually your device. In this case, I'm returning the idea of devices just for this moment, because look at this animation. I'm going to have your mobile on your own. I'm not going to support it. God bless you. It's your cell phone. You call AT&T, buddy, or whoever you want, T-Mobile, Verizon, or be happy, okay? I'm from Mexico, so you call Telcel, okay? Be happy. But your laptop, your tablet, it could be a bring your own managed. So you can bring your own, but I'm going to manage it. And therefore, we can write an SLA together. And the third one is I'm not going to regulate on your own, on here's your own, I'm going to give you a choice for your primary device, which may be a laptop. Is this cool? Is this useful? This is what we're seeing as successful. We're seeing people that be very unsuccessful when they block populations on a single box. Okay? What we're seeing as very successful is that they allow people to have multiple devices on multiple boxes. What does this mean specifically? That you have to be very careful because you're going to have to manage, secure, administer, and maintain services. Did you get that last word? Services, not devices, across all of them. So your break fix for devices shouldn't go up the roof. Your break fix for services should go up the roof. As that is centralized, it should be off the roof. That's a very tiny roof, so it's okay. Now you see where I'm going? So, let's keep going for a second. I've shown this slide before. I'll just repeat it. It's simple. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so your question was, shouldn't the phone shift a little bit more towards toward my, what is this, my left, right? My right. Well, I'm so wrong. My left, thank you. So, which one's your, what's your name, Bob? Okay, so, sorry for that. That came out too, huh? That's one of those Homer Simpson moments. Did I say it or did I think it, right? So, to my left. That's your question. Let me address that in a couple of slides. So stay with me there because I'll talk about that in a second, okay? So, you see, nothing here is cast in stone, but it's really what we've seen. Understand, like I said, between Jeff and I, we see, if I'm fair, 250 customers, 250 IT environments per year of the Fortune 5,000 worldwide. So it's not a bad list. Understand, it's really not a bad list. And what we're trying to tell you is this is the average of what we're seeing. You could be a little different. It's all perfect, right? That's where we see people being what we call outliers, pushing the boundaries. This is employee purchased. This is company purchased. Fair? This is employee managed. This is company managed. This is where your break and fix has to go a little more controlled. This is employee indifference. In other words, I don't care about your device or your experience, versus I care and I influence it. And the last one is there's always a trade-off between control and freedom, between risk and compliance or access. Okay? So with that said, wait, I'll bring it back. You get the slides anyways, so don't worry about it. Now, I just ask you this because I know I'm getting recorded. Yesterday, somebody blogged something pretty harsh that I said, and I was pretty happy, right? It was like, oh, pretty cool. He took it the wrong way. Don't do that, okay? Not in this session. Come on, behave nice, guys. Be nice. I'm a human being too. I know I'm a speaker, but, clubber the other guys. Understand. I'm trying to give you profiles because I want to give you an example, but stick whatever you want in here. Is that okay? I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a stock trader or if it's a doctor or if it's a... Put your own people. Think about it this way. This is the right way to think. Now, I'm not going to go through this slide. This slide is just a soiree. It's just a menu of all the technologies you could be using, right? I'll show you a couple in a more practical way. So I'm not going to go through this. Because some people say, hey, you know what? He's recommending VDI. He's not recommending VDI. He's recommending RDS or Windows to Go, or he's not. He's recommending Universal Access Gateways or IPv6, or he's not. I'm not recommending any of those. For me, all of those, with all due respect, are just tools. Okay? And I'm not crazy about any specific tool. I don't have a favorite one. I like it when they play nice together and I build a house. What I find laughable and incorrect is when I see somebody trying to chop a board of wood with a hammer, okay? And saying, I'm going to manage a dispersed, highly irregular, and highly volatile environment through VDI on a wide area network. No, you shouldn't. And you already understood why. Because you're trying to cut the board with the hammer. It's going to be hard as heck. Get a saw. There's other tools for that. Okay? Tell them I'm busy, please. So, let's go through the next one. Applications. This is what you were asking to some degree. I don't think we should manage more the device because we're putting applications there. I think you really have to figure out two things. Which data is going to go to those applications in an unmanaged environment? And then, how do I secure the data? You see, there's this application that we at Microsoft got just a while ago, which was fascinating to me. So I'll give you this example because it was very interesting. This is our medical plan. And there's this application where I can see how much I've spent versus in which tier I am. If I'm in the tier that I pay myself, if I'm in the tier that I pay a co-insurance, or if I'm in the tier that the insurance covers it 100%. And it tells me the latest. So all this is hyper-related. That's what I'm trying to say. So all this is really critical, and the data is super compliant. Well, it's a cool application because if it doesn't sign in, it doesn't bring down the data, and as soon as I log off, it scrubs the data off. So what I'm trying to urge you to think is, if you're going to put it on a mobile device, stop trying to manage the device, manage the app, because you cannot and you will not stop Angry Birds. Okay? Angry Birds will make it into the device. You don't like Angry Birds? What is the new one? Jewel King or Candy King or whatever? And if it's not that one, what? Bejeweled? What? I'm old. You understand what I'm saying? And if it's not that, it's the Last Jedi Master application. But you're not going to stop it. It's his phone. And you know what? If that's the way he relaxes 5 minutes a day and then he becomes more productive, more power to him. I was in a very large insurance company, and they told me, and this is in Europe, okay? This is in, I'll say the country, this is in Belgium, okay? So they told me they were losing people to the competitors. So the interviewees would walk in the door and they would ask, like everybody right now, because if you think it's a joke, go interview a couple of young people. And these were the brightest minds from statistics that you want to hire as an insurance company, okay? And you don't want them to go to your competition. You want to hire them. Is that cool? That's what insurance does. Okay? This guy came in and he said, what do I get? And he said, a laptop with a MAC address, hard-coded, so no Wi-Fi, and you can't move it from the desktop. And on top of that, you get a desk phone, and Facebook is blocked. And the guy left. And when they asked 30 of these people, 30 that are left, you know what the answer was? I don't talk on the phone anymore. And keep your phone. I talk with all my friends through Facebook, and if I can't talk to them, then this is not an environment that me as a human being feels comfortable working. It's like me saying I need a chair, and you saying, no, we don't give chairs. We give stools. You're like, nope, that's not an environment I want to come work. I have another offer. So this is not kids that don't have offers. This is kids that have 2 and 3 offers, and you want to get. So you're actually hurting the business by having those policies. The problem this guy was having, he had to go and renegotiate the contract with the union, God forbid, because the union said that if they opened to Wi-Fi, it would imply more hours of work to the labored workers who were on contract. So now you see the complexity. This guy now had to go to the board of trustees, to open Wi-Fi. You think I'm joking? I'll tell you another example. I'm not going to say which state because I don't want this again to get blocked on my behalf. But there was a state in the US, a city, right, that had a massive lawsuit for the reason that workers were getting emails, don't get any ideas, were getting emails at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whatever, 11 p.m., right? So the workers sued that government dependency and said, you owe me for 15 years this many more hours, which is because they were hourly paid. So basically you owe me 3 times my salary. The reason is you're making me work all hours of the day, and they brought to the court system the examples of the mails that they replied at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and 5 a.m. And that was enough to appoint them the money. So what was the solution that this government entity did? This is in the US. You know what was it? They close email at 6 p.m. and they turn it on at 8 a.m. Now you think I'm joking because some of you are saying, no, we're European. Those are those crazy Americans. A country in Europe, one of the largest ones, okay? Again, I was fair to the US, I'll be fair to one of the largest countries in Europe, okay, had the exact same problem. And they had the exact same solution. But they actually turned it off at 5 p.m. Okay? So if you want to know more about it, you come with me afterwards and I'll tell you about these cases specifically on a one-on-one basis. Is that fair? Because I want to be respectful of this government entities. So don't try to protect the device. It's not yours. Legally, you get into more trouble. Protect the app, protect your data.
My question is more, some apps will leave data like mail.
Yes, some apps will leave data as mail, yes. So for the apps that leave data as mail, I don't care about the corporate user, but the compliance user, I'm going to force him to use a device that I can do some type of right management. And there's examples on all types of devices, so I'm going to leave it up to your interpretation, okay? Because I want to be fair with you. I want you to understand that I am a Microsoftie and whatever, but I'm not going to drink all the Kool-Aid, right? I'm going to be fair to you. There's different technologies you can use. The only problem is you're going to pay for that device more than a laptop, and I'll prove it at the next point. So let me just finish with TCO. Anybody interested in TCO? Don't raise your hand, because it's the most boring topic of this whole... So I'll go... I know, man, I'm sorry. He's like, you blew me out of the water. What's up? So let me just do a slide for you, okay? I did something that is horrible. You shouldn't do this, okay? Well, you shouldn't do everything I just did, but you really shouldn't do this, which is to grab 7 studies from 3 different analysts and put them together, because they were done at different times and they were done at different populations, and maybe the currencies were not the same. Who cares? I did it anyways. Let's see what happens. What's the worst that can happen, okay? If you disagree with the findings, you fight me, okay? So the first 4 columns, you're going to have to imagine this because this is going to go away in a second, is desktop, laptop, okay? The next 2 is VDI RDS, remote desktop services type, terminal, etc., Citrix. And then the last one is smartphones and tablets. So stay with me. You have to understand this because this is critical for you understanding TCO. TCO is driven by efficiency, not the other way around. I'll say this again. I'm going to go to the gym, and because I go to the gym, I get slimmer and I feel better. It's not that I feel better and get slimmer and then I go to the gym. Okay? So your idea of I'm going to reduce the budget and I'm going to save TCO is a lie. You reduce the budget and you cost 3x more later because you have to bring back everything you cut down. And if you want me to prove it, I'll prove it in so many ways that it'll scare you. Okay? Think of every time you cut down on something and how you had to recover 2 years later. And because you lost 2 years of maturity, operational maturity, you messed up. Fair? So, with that said, if I can manage 137 devices per FTE, what's an FTE? Full-time equivalent. Okay? An IT smart person managing devices. I don't care if it's insourced, outsourced, your cousin, my aunt, whoever it is. It's just somebody, okay? Now, if I can do double, then my cost is down 40%. Duh. You see, I'm being simplistic because I want you to get that we have argued about this for ages, and the equation is the same. There's no magic here. Don't get excited about this. And don't think I'm being offensive. I'm not. It's just, and I'm not being simplistic. It's just this has been proven with 15 years. 15 years. Okay? So seriously, the more devices you can manage, the cheaper. Now, the secret here is well managed. Come back with me. Well managed. It's not managing devices like crap, okay? It's well managed, so doing it well. Now, what happens if I go to terminal services or if I go to VDI? It's cheaper only if you go from locked and well managed. How many people here have locked and well managed? Don't raise your hands, I won't believe you. No, I don't believe you. You're a liar, that's it. I called you in public. You see, I'm just kidding, man. But seriously, nobody does. Everybody has the best. The best is moderately managed. Is that fair? That's what most of us want to have or have. And therefore, we did another study, and the study said, for people who have unmanaged PCs, personal computers, this didn't mean Windows, unmanaged PCs, if you go to VDI or terminal services or Citrix or whatever, you reduce it by 2%. So it's still the same thing here, you see? You go down by 2%. So if it's poorly managed, you even get less benefit. But the benefit from VDI, it's not TCO. Are we good with this? So if you're saying I'm going to do the TCO thing, just grab Gartner, buy your subscription, and download the latest 20 studies. I'm not kidding you. You're going to freak out. There's not even one study that says that you're going to save money. Not one. Okay? Everybody that says they're going to save money hasn't done it operationally. Again, this is your PC without any stack. This is your PC with a full stack to support it, to do it remotely. What do you think is cheaper? Look at the surface of manageability. No? I missed it? You didn't like what I said. I'm good with that. Don't like me. But understand, that is the truth from anybody who's managing it. It's more complex, because you just made it more complex. Now, with that said, if you go to a smartphone with no corporate security, a little cheaper. And if you go to a tablet with no data plan, because I'm sorry to say most tablets today are only Wi-Fi, believe it or not. Most of them are, around the world and on any economy. Okay, there's few that are actually connected and paying a data plan. So what happens when I put a data plan back in, when I put full corporate security, and I can do everything that we just talked about, right? I do all right management and gold boxing and drop boxing, and I'm saying that on purpose. I'm saying my acronyms, okay? And if you do all that, you're more expensive than a PC. And the new studies that we have says that you are between 2x and 3x more expensive than a moderately managed PC. Between 2x and 3x. So if you were going to go down the path of I'm going to go to tablets or phones or whatever because it's cheaper, God bless you. It won't be. Okay? And if you want the studies, just go into Gartner. Now, you don't believe me? There's a couple of links here which are actually a little old, but I still like the studies. Like I said, these are studies from 2010, and some links, I hope they're not broken, but I really like the study, this one that analyzes storage as an effective terminal and/or VDI, and this one that does a smackdown from February 2012 of different technologies. It actually, some of them are not there anymore, but they do a very good job at showing the architecture and the complexities and the non-complexities. But this is the big statement. And I just want to finish by saying, I want to give you a couple of references so you don't think I'm full of lies. Is that fair? So you want to know exactly which ones to go read? There you go. That's a good short list. I could give you a list of 25. I'm not kidding. But, you know, this is enough. Yes, sir, go ahead. Shout it out. Yes, going down from I'm repeating what you're saying. From an unmanaged to managed to VDI, yes. Okay, if you have unmanaged and you take it to VDI, is your image going to be managed or not? Your image. Remember, a PC is a PC is a PC. Managed. Okay, you're going to save exactly the same amount if you just manage it. Understand, just managing it is 40%. Taking it to VDI is another 2%. 2% whether you're unmanaged to unmanaged VDI. 2% if it's managed to managed VDI. Now you understand? So VDI, the only real effect that it has is that. And I'll tell you why. Okay, because your question should be, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to be a little more progressive. Your question should be, or your next question should be, why? Is that fair? And I'll answer it. Because VDI, and even more so terminal services, I was almost attacked by the mic right here. You know, those two force you because they're more sensitive to the types of applications, and they're more sensitive to the application, so they force you to do what you should have done in the first place, which is manage your HHH image. So just manage it, man. If you don't manage your apps, you don't manage your image, you don't manage your data, you don't manage your access, and you take it to VDI, let me put it to you this way. I have a lion, and I'm going to put the lion in a cage. Where is the lion less dangerous? It's the same lion. You're in the cage with him. Okay? Understand. What you got to do first is manage the lion. Okay? Tame him, feed him, keep him happy. Okay, whatever. The lion example is not my best analogy ever. I can agree with that. Let's finish this up. I'm 15 minutes into it. So, I'm not going to go through this. You already understand that this is more for you to keep. You got all those, right? Is that fair? Can I move away? You got that. That's what I've been saying all along. Let me just explain. Go through your apps, go through your data, understand that there's policy and legal impact for all this. So please, talk to the lawyers early, because if you talk to them early, they just bill you. If you talk to them afterwards, you're talking to your lawyers and their lawyers. You see my point? So don't wait. Talk to the lawyers early on BYOD. There's going to be implications that are legal. I'll tell you a simple why. If I make you buy your device, whether it be from your money, my money, or whose ever money, you know what's going to happen? You're going to come back to me and you're going to say, who pays taxes? That's it. There you go. Here come the lawyers. Now you see my point? So understand, you have to bring this conversation up to HR and up to the corporate lawyers if you're going to go down the BYOD. People who do it, are successful. People who don't face trouble down the line. It's not that it's harder, it's just the way it is. Because you're impacting taxes and you're impacting the contract between the labor and the employee, between the company and the employee. So because you're affecting the contract, you have to have those conversations. And if you have unions, God bless you, think of more creative routes. Because it's going to get dramatically crazy when you go to the CEO and you tell him, I want to renegotiate the contract with the union because I want to do BYOD. You know what he's going to tell you? Go find something else, don't bother me. It doesn't matter. Voluntary or non-voluntary, you have to sign a contract. That signing of a contract implies you need to bring in the lawyers. Involuntary BYOD is pretty cool, but it depends on the type of data. Because if the data is compliant, there's no voluntary. That implies the contract of the employee and the type of work he's doing. You see my point? So there's no voluntary employment when it comes to compliancy data. And compliancy data in some of the more crazy environments like defense, a defense contractor, nothing is voluntary, dear sir. Whatever you sign is a legal contract and you're still bound by the law. So be careful with that. That's a very dangerous, fine line to walk. Like I said, talk to the lawyers. It's all good. Now, last but not least, we have a ton of profiles that we've built for this that you can use as templates. Download them. Use our IP, our intellectual property. We've built a ton over the years. Nobody has had 30 years of experience like us on this. Let's be serious. We're the only company that's had 30 years of thinking about this. So download our intellectual property and use it. And you know what? There's a ton of cool technologies you could be using. Let me show you a couple. I have very little time, so I'm going to run. The first thing we did was we started showing about 3 years ago this example from Microsoft IT. And this is not the example that I want to show you. I'm going to have to go super fast. That's why I'm talking faster. Because the example I want to show you are two examples of two other companies that after seeing this, build their own interpretation of it. Okay? And how they were successful. So, first of all, this is Microsoft IT, and this is a little outdated. I think you saw it on the keynote. Massive IT organization, really complex. That's not the point. Let me show you the support slide for PCs. Okay? So this is for internal Microsoft employees, and it works like this. Microsoft IT standard PC, if that's what you get, a Microsoft IT standard, and I go to the office in Dubai, and I lose my power supply, they'll have a power supply for me waiting there. Okay? So if I have a Microsoft IT standard computer, they'll have all the support I need. Look at this. Help desk hardware support, help desk software support, line of business application, patching, driver support for Microsoft IT images, BitLocker is encryption of the hard drive, direct access is, back in the days, IPv6, now IPv4, okay, or access strategy, VPN with smart card, Wi-Fi exchange, corporate access to applications, print, file share in SharePoint, and last but not least, link and unified communications. Okay, so stay with me. Corporate PC, standard bot, yes to everything. A PC with a TPM chip that's recommended but it's not in the corporate list, best effort. I go to Dubai, no power supply for me. Is that cool? If I grab a PC without a TPM chip that's recommended, best effort and a couple of notes because I can't encrypt the hard drive, therefore I can't meet compliance requirements, therefore no access for you to certain apps. The next one is, what happens if I bring a PC, an MS phone, or a non-PC device? Well, it starts diluting. You know what's beautiful about this? I know what my SLA is. Remember when I told you at the beginning that the user should tell you which type of strategy you're giving him? So look, if I bring a phone that's crazy, tell me whichever phone you want. A phone that's running Hannah Montana Ubuntu Linux, okay? You don't believe that exists? God bless you. Go look it up. You think I'm not technical. I've actually deployed it. So it was actually pretty cool. So if you do that, okay? I know, why did I go there again? Another Homer Simpson moment. So if you do that, you know what happens? What you do there is you tell him, look, man, I'm not going to support you. But you know what? That guy probably just wanted email. Think of all your iPhone and your iPad and your Android users. All they want is email calendaring. That's all they want. And if you don't have any compliancy problem with that, then what's your deal? Just give it to them. Give them the service. Protect and manage the service. That's about it. They're going to do it anyways. Now you see where I'm going? Now, you think I'm not being clear? I'll finish up the whole presentation with 2 slides. Be with me. This is the first example. This is a guy that said, I'm going to do 3 time steps to build this whole matrix. So I'm not going to consume the whole matrix because I can't. I'm not there today. So step 1, I'm going to do follow me desktop, Windows 8 tablet OS, assessment, think clients, voicemail and email, follow me settings, and no change in docs. Step 2, I'm going to do Outlook for offline docs. And step 3, I'm going to do follow me docs. You see, this is their names, right? So it's a real example of a real guy who said, how am I going to enact this in 3 steps from 2013 Q1 to 2014 Q1. Good stuff. Now this one, I like a little bit more because it's a little bit crisper as a 1-slider. I'm giving you this so that you have the list. Let me move away from this and give you the graphical version. Is that okay? Did you read the list? You satisfied? I like this. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to read it. You see how cool this is? This is for an executive, I'm going to give him this. For a manufacturing kiosk, I'm going to do this. For a commercial, so in other words, I have, and this is interesting, I have people, Salesforce, that are not employees. This is not a manufacturing company, but it could also be sales agents, like in insurance. So what do they give them? They give them Windows to go BitLocker USB. And that's a brilliant idea because you go in, any PC, whatever you want to have is your deal. I support the image on the BitLocker, Windows to go, and that's it. It's a very interesting idea because I support an environment that I control, if it's a very compliant data environment. So I'm not telling you, again, I'm not in love with anybody or any technology. I'm just trying to tell you this is another creative way to do a very interesting piece of work, okay? It's another way to solve it, that's all I'm saying. Then you have R&D environments, which are going to be a lot more constrained. You have corporate environments, and you have contractors and vendors. So with that said, let me summarize the whole thing by saying one thing that I've said over and over and over. This is the 3rd time I say it. I don't know if this slide will make it over to the next version. But I just still can't find a way to get rid of it. My best advice to you is stop saying no. Your users are saying yes for you. Start saying yes, but say it responsibly. Is that okay? Start saying yes. That's the power of actually supporting them and enabling them. With that said, this link takes you to the Windows 8 resources. There's a ton of stuff there. We've created a ton of intellectual property. Use it, be happy. And this is the brand new website that we have. Let me put the most beautiful slide of every Microsoft presentation. There you go. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you for coming.